You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 24. Star Trek continues with Vic Mignogna.
This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by Happy Pants Books. Are you a coach, consultant, or keynote speaker who needs to publish or perish? Get your ideas out of your head and onto the page. Visit happypantsbooks.com.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a whole week since we've talked. Les, how you doing? How's everything going in your life? You should let me know. You should call me, actually. And it's very easy to do that. If you call this magic number, 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. You can leave me a voicemail, and you can ask me anything that pops into your little head, and I am willing to play your questions and your comments on air, and kind of just, we'll pal around a little. That's our communication. It's kind of like the old days of sending like a telegraph or something. Like, I put a message out, and then I wait, and then you send a message back. So, yeah, but call me. You can also visit me online, kevintomlinson.com/podcast, where you can, if you are overseas and you don't want to dial long distance, you can actually call me from SpeakPipe, which is on my site. There's a little button that's going to be floating right there on the right-hand side. You'll see it, a little orange tab. Click on that, and it'll let you speak directly into your computer interface and leave me a voicemail. And you can always send me an email from there. So welcome to do all of those things. I would really love to hear from you. So, one more thing, just sort of admin before we start. I've been talking about my Patreon campaign for the past few weeks, and I'm getting some response on that, and I am really incredibly, ridiculously stupid grateful to the people who are supporting me in this show. Every week I bring you a whole new interview, a whole new perspective on something really cool to me, and I think it's really cool to you. It's very inspiring to me. This is probably one of the most fun things I do with my week. I'll be honest with you. I love to write, and I love to talk about writing. I love working with clients and coaches, getting books created, telling stories. That's a passion for me, always will be. But this podcast, something I started just to see if I could do it, just to see how it would be, give me a chance to talk to people that I respect and admire. It has turned into something so incredible, and I'm so just stupid grateful for everything that's coming out of it. So thank you so much for being a listener to the show. Thank you for participating. If you're a former guest, it's amazing how former guests of mine will subscribe to this show. I really appreciate you guys on a level you don't even understand. So thanks so much for tuning in. So I have a way, if you want to support the show financially, you can do that. You can go to patreon.com/Kevin Tomlinson, and you can actually fling some money my way. It's not a huge, you don't have to commit a huge amount, but even like $1 a month would be very helpful. And some people are going that route, and some people are going more, which I really appreciate. Thank you so much for that. But the idea here is you're always going to get the content for free. You're always going to get the show for free. You're never going to have to worry about paying for it, to have access. This is just to offset some of the cost of overhead to keep the show going. And it's, there's not a lot of direct costs involved, but it's very time consuming. So for every hour I spend in this booth or working on producing the show, that's an hour of writing I'm not doing, or it's an hour of consulting or coaching I'm not doing, or speaking. So it can get a little pricey if you start figuring dollars for hours, but yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway. I mean, honestly. So, but I really appreciate your support. So go check that out. Patreon.com/Kevin Tumlinson, or if you go to kevintumlinson.com and slash podcast, or any other slash really, you'll see that in the navigation menu there's a fund me option, and you can click on that and commit to $1, $2, $5, $20, whatever you want. So every bit helps. Thank you so much. And I'd love it if you, while you were there, you would join the tribe, become an official slinger, where you get updated on everything that's happening with the podcast, everything that's happening with the blog, any new books I release, any events where I'll be speaking. All that stuff gets funneled through the mailing list. So go sign up. You get a free book out of it. Right now I'm giving away the first book in the Sawyer Jackson series, which has been really popular. Man, it's getting so much attention right now. Now, people aren't reviewing. That's a weird thing to me. But if you have read Sawyer Jackson, or if you plan on reading it, I would really, really appreciate it if you would go post a review on Amazon and Goodreads. So there's all that. And so thank you so much. Now that's enough about me. Let's get to something pretty freaking amazing. So I have a good friend. I've known this guy for years. We go back to my film and television days, as far back as when I was interning at a radio show that I later started producing. But beyond that, I'd become involved with, I'd become like an associate producer, and then eventually a full producer and an executive producer with a guy named Todd Huey, who I did not interview for this podcast, but I'll get to him. He deserves his own show. But one of his partners for a time was Vic Mignogna, and so that's how I met Vic, who at the time was kind of fascinating to me. He was always fascinating to me, because he was doing a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I will admit to modeling some of my career at that point in my life on what he was doing. Now he had a whole media production business going, and he was partnered with Todd on that and some of that. But what he started doing that I never really got into, dabbled in, was voice acting. And he had been doing this for a while. So, he is a voice actor. He's also an on-screen actor. He's got credits on IMDb, and you can go check him out. He shows up in a lot of places that I wouldn't have expected. He's in a lot of video games, but he does a lot of voice acting for anime. When these anime programs come over from Japan, they'll dub them with American actors, and he's done a lot of that work. And he is probably best known for his role as Edward Elric in Full Metal Alchemist. And then we did, and we talk about this briefly on the show, but he did a live-action fan film of that called Full Metal Fantasy, in which a certain web-slinger got cast as Gluttony for some obvious reasons. I've always been a somewhat hefty guy, but I actually voluntarily shaved my head for that role. So, and what's funny is a few weeks after that, as my hair was finally growing back, I met the gorgeous woman who would become my wife, Kara. I almost called her Karen. Ooh. Sorry, baby. And she, she did not like the buzz cut hair I had going on at the time, but that grew back. So, a lot of cool things happened around my life in that time of my life with Vic right there as part of it. So, he was a good friend. So, this conversation, though, is about something awesome. He and his friends in LA have started producing a fan series based on Star Trek, the original series, called Star Trek Continues, and it's got a really a pretty awesome cast. And these guys, they fly from L.A. to Florida to a soundstage in Florida that's built out as the Enterprise, and they do a lot of their shooting there. And I mean, it's a huge investment, and they make nothing from it. I mean, no money whatsoever. They are running a Kickstarter campaign to kind of help fund it. So I want to talk about that and get you into that. And I'll put links to it in the show note. They call it a Kirk starter, which is pretty funny. So yeah, go check that out. So I'm going to get into the show now, and we're going to talk to Vic, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, please give me a comment. Say something on iTunes. Twitter is fine also. I was going to say Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Connect with me, connect with Vic, and let us know how you like the show. So thank you so much for tuning in. And here, without further delay, at least, is my good friend Vic Mignogna. Hey everybody, this is Kevin, and I'm talking with a good friend of mine from way back, actually, my friend Vic Mignogna, who at one point actually managed to talk me into shaving my head, which no one else has ever been able to do.
Good times.
Those were good times.
Huh, Kevin?
Yeah, so Vic is a voice actor and a screen actor, and he's done a lot of parts you may have heard of. If you watch Cartoon Network at all, if you're an anime fan, you probably heard his voice a lot as Edward the Alchemist in Full Metal Alchemist. Did I get that right? I sometimes flub that.
You did, yeah. Edward
Okay.
Elric and
Edward
Full
Elric.
Metal Alchemist. And the fans of Full Metal would probably be interested in knowing, Kevin, that the reason that you shaved your head was because I was making a little fun fan film with a lot of the voice actors cosplaying as their characters from Full Metal Alchemist, and I needed a gluttony, and you graciously agreed to do so.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Because it doesn't hurt that I'm a hefty word slinger. So, yeah, that was fine. That was a lot of fun, actually. That was one of the best experiences I've had in front of a camera. So I count that. I count it as a film credit. So,
Well, you can be pleased to know that a lot of fans around the world have absolutely loved that little thing that you were a part of.
It's
Full
still
Metal Fantasy.
Yeah, it's still popular to this day, and I hear chatter about it all the time. I know people are clamoring to try to get their hands on it.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, I just last year I released a live concert DVD, and when I was looking for extras to put on the DVD, I thought, I've only ever shown this thing at conventions.
Yeah.
It's never been available anywhere, so maybe it's a good time to make it available. So that's what I did. So Full Metal Fantasy is now on the concert DVD.
Oh,
and
sweet.
everyone around the world can see Kevin in his bald glory.
Very cool. I'm gonna have to get my hands on it and start handing that out. So I'll sign copies, everybody. You send me an email. So you are right now. Okay, well, first you've got some exciting stuff. I mean, one of the things you're working on right now, I can't wait to talk about, which is Star Trek Continues. But before we get to that juicy bit, let's talk a little about your background. Like, how did you get into acting and voice acting?
Well, it's funny. I have to say, quite by accident, quite honestly. I've been doing a lot of ever since I was very young. I had been doing a lot of theater and stage work and some a little bit of on-screen work as well. But about 15 years ago now, a friend of mine in Houston, Texas, I was working with on a video production, said, "Hey, you've got a lot of acting experience, don't you? Would you be interested in auditioning for this place in town that does this Japanese anime? They buy these shows and they dub them into English, and they're looking for actors." And I thought, wow, that really sounds fun. So I went and auditioned. I didn't expect anything would really ever come of it. I didn't know, anything about the anime industry. I didn't know anything about where they distributed this stuff, but I did it, and then it actually just ended up continuing from there. I kept getting more and more opportunities to do it, and 15 years later, I've done about 300 different animated series and video games and stuff like that.
So what are you in right now?
Oh gosh, right now I'm working on shows like Digimon, Pokemon,
Nice.
Naruto, Bleach. There's a couple more. I'm working on a new show called Free. I'm working on a new show called Carnival. I'm working on a series called Heroes. Several,
Nice.
probably
Yeah.
probably on and off, probably 9 or 10 right now,
I've always
and a
known.
couple I'm not allowed to talk about yet.
Okay. Well, we won't spoil anything. Yeah, I've always known you as like one of the hardest working guys in my circle, anyway. Probably one of the hardest working guys in the business. So, and I have to tell everybody because you're a little under the weather right now, so they're getting a treat because you came special for this.
Yeah, I should have apologized from the very beginning if I don't quite sound like my normal energetic self. We had a very long shoot at the studio yesterday, and so today I'm a little bit under the weather, but was looking for an opportunity to chat with you. So
Yeah. So was that one of your secret roles you can't talk about?
no, actually, it was a shoot for something related to Star Trek Continues.
Oh, sweet. All right. So, okay, since we brought it up, let's just jump to it, man. And we'll get into more of your history too, because I know there's other things that you've worked on. You and I have worked on some things together too. But
Yeah.
tell me about Star Trek Continues. I mean, I know you're a fan from way back. I am too. But and there are lots of fan series on the web, but there aren't any that are quite like this one. I think it's pretty special. But why don't you give some background about how this started?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you saying that because I feel the same way. Over the years, I've worked with several different fan productions that shall not be named, but working with them made me feel like something could be done so much better.
Yeah.
If I could put together a good team of people and get some great stories and actually get actors to play the roles, that we could really up the game a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I worked on a production. I directed a production for some friends of mine at another fan production called Starship Farragut.
Yep.
And we became good friends. I really liked these guys, and we decided to kind of form a little bit of a partnership where we would pool our resources and basically build as complete a replica from the original series soundstage as possible, and then they would shoot their episodes there, and we would shoot our episodes there.
So you guys share a set? I mean, it's the same set.
Yeah, we built a facility in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
And they shoot their episodes there, and I shoot mine.
So you're in LA right now, so that means you're taking that.
I
hike,
am.
Huh?
And most of our actors and a lot of our production crew live in Los Angeles. But to be honest with you, the amount that it costs to have a 10,000 square foot facility and build these sets and lease the building and utilities is so cost effective in that part of the country. You could never do something like this in Los Angeles. It would be absolutely cost prohibitive. So, my love affair with Star Trek began when I was a young boy, and I just absolutely was obsessed with the original series when I was starting at around 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I just loved it and just absorbed anything Star Trek. And so, the chance to create a fan series that picks up right where the original series left off.
Yeah.
And continue basically the 5-year mission. The original series was supposed to be a 5-year mission.
Right.
And they were canceled after 3 years. So my idea was to pick up right where the original series ended and carry it on through the years 4 and 5, or give it an ending, basically.
Yeah.
Give it an ending and set the stage for the motion picture.
Yeah.
Which of course reunited the characters.
Yeah, so that's where all this is leading. Is the Star Trek the motion picture would be the episode just after your final episode, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, Star Trek Continues would be a continuation up through year 4 and year 5.
Yeah.
And we haven't yet decided exactly how we're going to do it, but the long-term goal would be to craft some episodes that would leave the crew, Kirk, McCoy, Spock, all of them, where we find them a few years later,
right,
when the motion picture picks up.
Yeah, so there will be some transitions in there. I mean, everything from switching uniforms to changing the set, right?
Well, yeah, and it just depends on when that happens. I mean, I doubt that we won't do that, because it would probably be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
But we intend to set up a reasonable, believable transition.
Yeah. So tell me a little about the cast, because you've got some known faces and some surprising faces on the show. Who all's involved?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm very, very proud of the cast and the production team we put together in general. But as I said, one of the most common criticisms of fan productions is the acting.
Yeah.
Almost everybody agrees that, no matter how nice you build a set, no matter how nice your costumes are, no matter how good your special effects may be, because you've got a CGI wizard to help you out.
Right.
Most people usually agree that, what it comes down to is the acting. And most fan productions, that's one of their weakest links. So from the very, very beginning, my intention was to put together a team of actors to play these roles. People that I knew wouldn't shy away from a dramatically serious story.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, man.
I was just going to say, so I have a lot of very dear friends in the voice acting community who are on-screen actors and theater actors in their own right. In fact, most of the voice actors I know have their training and background and experience in theater and on-screen acting. So some of the first people I went to were people like Todd Haberkorn, my friend, who is my younger brother in the voice acting world, and he's a very great actor. And so he plays Spock. And then Chuck Huber, a dear friend of mine and an amazing actor, plays McCoy. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, my friend Grant Imahara from Mythbusters turned out to be just a perfect choice for Sulu. Yeah. And a young lady that I know out here in Los Angeles named Kim Stinger plays Uhura. She's an actress out here in L.A. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, what a stroke of good luck and a gift to have Chris Doohan playing his father's role as Scotty. It's so neat to have him a part of it, and he's having the time of his life, and I'm sure his dad would be very, very proud of the honor that Chris has paid to that role. And then, of course, my dear fiancée, Michelle, plays a brand new character that we created named Dr. McKenna. She is the first ever ship's counselor.
Okay.
Which, of course, as you know, they had, Marina Sirtis played Counselor Troy in Star Trek Next Generation. Of course, Next Generation is like 80 years after TOS. So my question was, okay, we could have Michelle. Michelle is an amazing actor and a very, very talented actor. And so she could either have played Nurse Chapel
Yeah.
or Yeoman Rand or one of the classic characters, or we could, introduce some new people. And I thought, it would be really cool if maybe we decided to introduce something that became commonplace
Yeah.
in the years ahead. So she plays that role, and then of course, my good friend and fellow financial contributor to the production, Stephen Dangler, plays our security chief, Drake, and then last and certainly not least, a young man that I know very, very well from anime conventions. He's an anime fan, but a very, very talented young actor named Wyatt Lenhart plays Chekhov.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we've had a large number of celebrity guests and guest stars.
Yeah. I'm actually, one in particular is really interesting to me because you and I happen to, well, I don't know. I've never talked to you about this, but you seem to be on board with this idea. But I've become a big fan of Doctor Who, and from what I understand, you guys are going to have one of the former doctors on the show, right?
Oh yes, yes indeed. In fact, we just finished shooting with him, Colin Baker, and he is absolutely wonderful. He and I have done several signing events together,
Yeah.
and became friends at some conventions. And when it came time to cast this role in our latest episode, I asked him if he'd do it, and he said happily.
That's really awesome. I love Star Trek. I always have. But ever since discovering Doctor Who, I mean, I watched some of the classic episodes, but when I was growing up, but I just like everyone else in the U.S., I really got into it when they reintroduced it in 2005. So I've been catching up on all the stuff I missed over 50 years.
Oh yeah, and you know what? I have to tell you, Kev. Throughout the years of my voice acting career, so many of the fans of my voice acting work have said to me, "Oh my gosh, do you like Doctor Who? Are you a Doctor Who fan?" And I have always said to them, I'll bet I would be if I ever had the chance to watch it.
Yeah.
But I never had the chance to really sit down and watch it. But recently, over the last year or two, Michelle and I have started kind of binging. We picked up with this Eccleston stuff and watched it right through David Tennant and Matt Smith, and now of course we're watching it regularly. But the other cool thing is that I have become friends with a lot of the people from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So now, as I'm beginning to enjoy the show, it gives me deeper appreciation. Like Arthur Darvill, who played Rory, and Karen Gillan, who was Amy, and Matt Smith and I have done a couple of shows together. Really nice kid. In fact, we always talk about hitting a soccer ball and kicking a soccer ball around sometime at a convention because he loves the footy, loves the footy, and of course Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy, and just a very healthy. I'm doing a show later this year with the young lady that plays Clara.
Oh, okay.
It's really neat to become friends with these people and then have such an appreciation for the show they've created as well.
Now, do they show any interest in maybe being on Star Trek Continues? Have you breached that subject?
Well, I can tell you that Colin Baker was absolutely beside himself.
Yeah.
To get to walk onto the bridge of the Enterprise and sit in the captain's chair.
I bet. Yeah, that's.
I mean, what we effectively did, Kevin, was we merged what are arguably the two most iconic, sci-fi series in television history.
Yeah.
And he had a great time. We had a wonderful time, and I expect we'll see more guest stars.
Yeah.
From that as well. But one of the things I wanted to do with Star Trek Continues was not just get Star Trek people.
Yeah.
But to bring guest stars in from other popular sci-fi shows like Battlestar Galactica or Buck Rogers or The Incredible Hulk or Star Wars. And We've had somebody from all of those.
Yeah.
And some classic Star Trek people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's the kind of what's great about the show, by the way, is that it's good storytelling. Like, it's not just, you could almost take it out of that Star Trek universe and it would be it would stand on its own. I mean, it does sort of hang on all the tropes of Star Trek, really, but I mean, it's good storytelling in and of itself. So you guys are doing a fantastic
Thank
job.
you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I've been really impressed. I love it, and I wish.
And let me say about that too. My intention all along, before I ever did this, was if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right,
Yeah,
and I'm going to find good stories. I want to find endearing stories and stories that have a message and a moral theme or an ethical, theme, or perhaps a social, commentary on some issue, which is what made the original series so endearing and so long-lasting, quite honestly.
yeah,
And so that's what we always endeavored to do. I've written the first several episodes, but that is not my strong suit. I mean, it's not something I want to do. I would love to believe that there are lots of great Star Trek stories out there. I mean, original TOS stories.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised, Kevin. You think there are until you start asking for them.
Yeah.
And then, I've probably received 70 or 80 story submissions at least, Kev.
Yeah.
And they just don't have whatever that thing is that made Star Trek so amazing and endearing.
I think it's here. I know the difficulty for me, because I gave you a script, and I don't. Really, after I handed it to you, I thought, this isn't really worthy. But I think the difficulty for me is that so much time has passed since I've really been into the original series.
Right,
that,
right.
I'm kind of out of tune with it. So I would need to go back, I think, and really dig in and watch, probably every episode. But, I think it was interesting, though, that you guys are, I hadn't really considered it, but you guys are trying to lead up to the movie franchise. That gives me some ideas right there, by the way, because there are things that happen in the franchise that could feed stories in that original series universe. So.
Oh yeah, and we've already been talking about and kicking around some of those ideas. But let me say also to you personally and to anyone else that may possibly be listening to your broadcast, the fact that we may or may not use the story ideas that are submitted is certainly not a slight on the person writing the story or even the story itself. It's just that I have a very narrow and specific vision of what I want to do with Star Trek Continues. And, while some story ideas may not fit into that narrow vision, it doesn't mean they're not good stories.
Yeah.
It just means that they aren't the kind of stories that I want to tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm always, and I'll tell you what. You know what I think, Kev? I think the proper approach to something like this would be similar to what they did in the late '60s, and that was they weren't just looking for sci-fi stories. They actually took stories out of the news.
Right.
They took topical stories and issues that were going on around the world or in this country or wherever. And then some very creative, imaginative mind thought of a story to present this, that whatever that issue was in a very creative and, a fantastic way.
Yeah.
In that Star Trek universe, so that it was incredibly creative, and engaging, but also had a theme, had a moral.
Yeah, the that was one of the great things about Star Trek, and it has a long tradition of that, even into the more modern stuff. Well, maybe not so much J.J. Abrams' run at it,
No.
but Next Generation, that was kind of my Star Trek, Next Generation,
Right.
and that was central to every episode, was exploring some theme that was deeply human. So yeah, I think that's a good approach. Yeah, you're right.
And you see, what I believe to be true is that every subsequent incarnation of Star Trek, Next Gen, on to Deep Space Nine, on to Voyager, on to Enterprise, and this is just my opinion, every one of them got further and further away from what it was that made the original series so great.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they ran out of good story ideas. I don't know the details. I do know for a fact that, Roddenberry, who was the visionary of Star Trek, he was clearly and completely at the helm, pardon the pun, of the original series. And then he had a fair amount to do with Next Generation, although not as much, and less and less and less, until he passed. So I'm not interested in it. I was never that interested much in the subsequent Star Trek series as much as the original. I don't know why, except that I discovered the original series at a very impressionable, I should say, at a very impressionable age, and it inspired me to do a lot of creative things that I'd never tried doing before, and so that's the one I want to continue.
Yeah, it's a lot like what they say about Doctor Who. Actually, you always sort of latch onto your first Doctor. So you always latch on to the first Star Trek that you encountered. And I don't know. I watched the original series when I was a kid, quite a bit. I mean, it was on all the time. It seemed like it's on all the time, but I don't know. I guess it hit me at the right age or something that Next Generation comes along, and I really clicked with that. But it took a while.
Oh no, and a lot of people do. And again, I'm not meaning to dismiss the qualities of Next Generation, but it was a different show.
Yeah.
It was a much more cerebral show.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a much more of a talking show than it was action adventure. And I think you could probably say that the two captains very, very perfectly personify the differences between those two series.
Yeah.
Captain Kirk was athletic, muscular, physical, virile, rushing in where angels fear to tread, gung-ho adventurer.
Yeah.
And Captain Picard was much more of a diplomat, an ambassador, and you know what I mean, and much more of a wiser, cerebral kind of a leader.
Yeah.
But regardless, I mean, the story.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all about the story, and Star Trek wants to tell great stories that resonate, and we're always looking for those.
Yeah. And that's this podcast is actually literally about story, and the tagline is that it's about story, how story shapes culture and career in our lives, and it's such an important aspect of daily life. But Star Trek was one of those things that was, metaphorically or otherwise, was a real story shaper. It helped a lot of people figure out who they were.
Absolutely.
So it's awesome to see that continue. And so you bring up Kirk, and you actually play Kirk in the series. And there's a question I always want to ask people who play an iconic character like that. But so do you play it like Shatner, or do you have your own take on it? I already know the answer to this, but just in case people haven't seen it, like, how do you
Well,
play it?
my answer to that would be this: William Shatner is Captain Kirk,
Yeah.
and I mean that in every sense of the word. I have done events with Bill Shatner.
Mm-hmm.
I've had dinner and spent, considerable time socializing with him, and he is Captain Kirk. And that's the captain that I love.
Yeah.
That's the character that I love. So the last thing I'm going to do, if I'm going to make a Star Trek series that continues the original, the last thing I'm going to do is try to reinvent a character that I love so much.
Yeah.
My desire is not to make a new Captain Kirk. My desire is to continue the Captain Kirk of the original series. And, in my opinion, Shatner's a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go back and watch the original episodes, he was great. He was wonderful, and he was lovable and endearing and passionate. And a lot of people nowadays, over the decades, have really satirized him.
Yeah.
And there's all of the parodies of him. And my desire was to create to play the role in such a way that anybody that watches Star Trek Continues immediately accepts that they're watching Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Not Chris Pine,
Right.
and not any other version, but they even though the face is a little different, I want people to, in very short order, settle in and accept that this is a continuation of the original series.
Yeah.
And that it picks up right where the original left off. And one of the greatest comments and one of the greatest positive comments we ever get is people that say, after 10 minutes, I forgot I was watching the fan production.
Right.
And I mean, that is the highest compliment you could pay us, because I want to honor Bill Shatner.
Right.
I want to pay tribute to the Captain Kirk that William Shatner created, not make it my own. Or, I had somebody, I'll let you in a little secret. I won't name any names, but there's an actor in my show.
Yeah.
Who one time said to me, I really want to try to make this character my own.
Yeah.
And I said to them, well, I don't want you doing that. I want you to play the character the way the original actor did. I want the viewers to feel like they're watching the original show.
Yeah.
George Takei never one time in the original series said, "Oh my."
Yeah.
He was not the person that he is today.
Yeah.
So for people to, so what I wanted was, I wanted Grant to play Sulu.
Right.
The Sulu we remember from the late 60s show. Not any other character that George has played, or, nothing about the way that the public and the media has satirized him.
Yeah.
Very much in the way that they've done Shatner.
Well, and you guys
So,
it's very subtle. So it's not like you're not doing a parody of these guys either. I mean, and that's something I really appreciated. Like there would be a tendency for some people to do the faux Shatner, the halted
right.
speech.
Oh yeah,
and
I'll let you in on another little secret. I'll let you in on another little secret and tell you that from the very beginning, from the very first day we started shooting, I said to one of the people on my production team, I took them aside privately and I said, if you see me doing too much of the parody.
Yeah.
If I push it too far, you tell me. I literally gave my crew permission to let me know if I was doing too much.
Yeah,
And
'cause
so
that would be jarring. I mean, it would take you out of the scene.
well, and it would be comical, and we don't want to be comical. So I'm doing the character to the best of my ability, the way I think Shatner would do it if he were doing it. And my desire is purely and singularly to honor William Shatner and the original series.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we don't make any money.
Right.
I mean, Star Trek is a licensed property. We
Right.
can't sell Star Trek. We can't sell it. We can't make money with it. So all of the money that I put into getting this thing off the ground and all of the generous donations from fans goes directly into making the episodes. Nobody is making any money from it.
Right.
So our goal is to honor the original series, not just to turn a buck, but to make something that we feel like the people that made the original show would be proud of.
Yeah.
And you know, our current Kickstarter, we've got what we call a Kirkstarter,
Yeah, I was gonna.
running right now, and we have a testimonial on there from none other than Rod Roddenberry,
Oh,
Gene's
cool.
son. Gene Roddenberry's son went on camera and said, I believe that these episodes are as good as, if not better than, some of the original series episodes. And if my father were alive today, I'm quite certain that he would consider this canon.
Talk about an endorsement, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, and he did Trek Nation, right? Wasn't that the name of it? Did you see the documentary?
I think that was it. Yeah, I think
And,
that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it was interesting for him to say that then, based on the things he was saying in the documentary. I mean, there was a time in his life where he just sort of resented Star Trek and didn't want to have anything to do with it, and he's really come around. So you know, it's a bigger statement than
You know,
you even think.
it's funny. It's funny, Kevin, because a lot of people that were a part of Star Trek resented it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny, and I don't mean resent it for all the money they made from it, certainly,
Right.
or resented it from being a part of it, from having a paying gig. But you know, back in the day, Kevin, when I was still a teenager, Leonard Nimoy wrote a book called "I Am Not Spock,"
Right.
and William Shatner did his famous "Get a Life"
Right.
sketch on Saturday Night Live, and a lot of people connected to Star Trek went through a phase where they resented that. But the reason why is because they felt like they were stereotyped somehow, that they couldn't get past, they couldn't seem to get past that character.
Right.
But what I believe Bill Shatner has come to accept, and Leonard, and certainly George and Michelle and Walter and people that were a part of it, is, how do I say this? It was an amazing privilege.
Yeah.
So I think their resentment phase only lasted a while, and at the end of the day, as later in their lives, they come to realize that Star Trek, if you got to be connected to something,
Yeah.
if you have to be known for something, most people aren't known for anything.
Yeah.
If you're going to leave a legacy and be connected to something, what better thing than something that has inspired and thrilled and entertained
Yeah.
tens of millions of people for years. So
and has
I think
literally.
that Shatner's come to terms with that.
Yeah,
I think
he
he's
has
come to embrace that. Hey, it's good to be Captain Kirk.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not. I don't resent it anymore. I appreciate. There are actors that can spend 50 or 60 years as a professional actor and never get to play an iconic character known the globe over
Yeah.
that will outlast and outlive you 50, 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And you're talking about T.J.
an
Hooker,
incredible.
right?
Yes, Barnaby Coast.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, so I think all of them, and Rod. I mean, which is what kind of sprung this conversation up. How you said how Rod even in Nation talked about resenting it. But now I think, I know Rod well, and he's a great guy, and I think he's come to really embrace and appreciate the enormous privilege to be a part of something like Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the few things you can point at that you can say literally changed the world. I mean, it impacted science and every economics even. I mean, it has this huge impact. It just keeps rolling and rolling. So being a part of that's got to be amazing.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but there are business and science and research companies populated by people who, when they were young, were inspired to go into science or research or any number of fields because of Star Trek.
Right.
So, I mean, our world is populated by adults today who, when they were young, chose a career because of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And the things they've accomplished, and you look at technology, look at communicators, 50 years ago, they're flipping open communicators, and no one would have ever imagined a flip phone.
Right.
Or a personal computer or warp drive or any number of, lasers or any number of things that are now in our day almost becoming commonplace. Many of which were only imagined in Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah. It fed a lot of advancement in all areas. I mean, even medical science saw a lot of advancement that was inspired by it. Growing artificial hearts and that sort of thing using the little lattice works. I remember seeing that on our original series episode was that lattice work idea. So, so all right. So you don't make any money on it. It's not a vehicle for success as an actor or anything. So why do it? Why do all these guys commit to doing this stuff, and why do they keep doing it? Why do you do it?
I would say just purely passion. I mean, I didn't want to play Captain Kirk because I could make money.
Yeah.
That never even occurred to me. I have no interest in that. I make a living doing other things. And it's funny. It always makes me laugh when people don't understand why I do this.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because every single human being, our friend Todd, anybody we know, every dollar you earn, Kevin, or will ever earn, only goes to one of two things. It either goes to the things you have to do, like your bills and your house payment, and gas for your car, and your kids' education, and insurance, and groceries, and what's left over goes to things you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
A vacation to Europe, a jet ski, a motorcycle, whatever. This is something I want and love to do.
Yeah.
So it's no mystery to me. It doesn't seem confusing to me that that I would spend my money, that I have, what I have, what I've saved, and what I have that's mine after bills and responsibilities, to do something I love. Now, granted, it's obviously an awful lot more elaborate. It requires 20, 30 people, building lumber, sets, lights, props, makeup, costumes, all kinds, special effects guys, and photographers, and sound guys, and all kinds of stuff. But it turns out that I'm not alone in my love of Star Trek and in my love of creating something unique and special to a production level that nobody ever has before.
And it says a lot about Star Trek, but also about Star Trek Continues in particular, that so many people are so dedicated and come back, time and again to do this.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Not only that, but every week I get emails from people from every different vocation, telling me how much they love Star Trek and wanting to know how they can help, and offering their services to build something, offering their services in special effects, offering their services in website design.
Yeah.
Just because there are millions of people out there.
Yeah.
This is like being a kid again, and it reminds us all, at least me and those of us involved in this production, it reminds us of those things that we loved at a simpler time, when we were inspired and our imaginations, were stimulated in new, fresh ways. And just the chance you should see the look on people's faces, Kevin, when they walk into our soundstage.
Yeah.
And when they walk through those sets, and it's like they are on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And they're like 12 years old again, because when they fell in love with that show, the idea that they might ever get to be there and walk through it was, that might as well have been as far away as landing on Mars.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so it's a euphoric experience to step into the corridor and walk down the corridor and go into all the different rooms, all interconnected.
Yeah.
Exactly laid out with spot on accuracy the way they were in the original series.
Wow. Yeah, I have to get to this set at some point.
Yeah, man.
I just want to sit in the captain's chair at least once in my life, so I can say I did get that off the bucket list. Sorry,
Absolutely.
So we're at the end, and it's too bad too, because I've got 1,000 more questions. Maybe one day I'll have to have you back on the show and we can talk
we'll have to
everything
do
out.
a part 2.
Yeah, we'll follow up. Star Trek Continues
Absolutely.
Part 2. Who would have expected that? So if I have any guests, and I'm gonna make the call to action, but if anybody has questions for you or wants to talk to you, do you mind if I pass things along as they come in? Because people will leave voicemails and emails and that sort of thing. So you got any problem with me passing that stuff along?
No, not at all. No.
You don't have to respond.
I mean, just understand, time schedule, and I can't always get back to people immediately about things, but and we, as I said before, we have no small amount of inquiries and people excited to be a part of it. But sure, I'm happy to answer whatever I can, do whatever I can.
Very cool. And everyone listening, by the way, can go and find out more about the show itself if you go to StarTrekContinues.com. You can also find out, and you can find out more about Vic and his work on vicsworld.net, which is his personal site, and links to all these things will be in the show notes along with.
And like us on Facebook.
Yeah.
Official Star Trek Continues, and follow us on Twitter. I think it's at Trek Continues. And we just finished shooting our 4th episode. We're getting ready to shoot our 5th, and a lot of exciting things in store. And please help donate to our Kickstarter, which is running for the next 2 weeks.
The Kirkstarter. How do they? I'll put it in. I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Do you know the address off the top of your head, or
no, I don't. No,
I'll just look it up after.
I'm afraid I don't.
Yeah, so it's on your website too, I believe, right? The Star Trek Continues site. I believe.
Yes.
So
Yes, I'm sure it is.
we'll find it. We'll hook him up.
I'm sure. Yeah,
So.
it's not hard to find.
All right, so that's going to wrap us up. And if you are a fan of Star Trek, definitely check them out at StarTrekContinues.com. Vic, thanks so much for being on the show, man. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. And
My
I know
pleasure.
you're sick, so thanks for taking the time.
Well,
man.
I'm gonna go make myself something hot to drink and try to lay low here for a day or two. I've got a lot of stuff coming up in the next several days I've got to be ready for. But that was a great pleasure to join you, and we'll look forward to staying in touch.
All right. Well, you heard him, everybody, and we'll talk to you all next week. And that was my good friend, Vic Mignogna. There aren't a lot of people in the world that I would shave my head for. I can't think of any right now, depending on the compensation, maybe. Because I like my hair. I got awesome hair. But that was Vic. And, you know, the stuff that he's doing, that everything he's working on is so amazing. He's got a pretty interesting life. You know, he travels a lot. He gets invited to anime conventions all over the world. And, you know, it's funny because he gets treated like a rock star. And but if I ever mention his name outside of anime circles, you know, there's a really good chance that people haven't really heard his name. But most of the time, I can mention a couple of things that he's done, and they get that right away. So that's kind of the curse of the voice actor, and he's a very talented voice actor, and he's very well connected to a lot of other voice actors. He's a very dynamic person. He's a connector. You know, that's something that once I learned that about him, I started emulating that. And though he's much better at it than I am, just knowing that the sorts of things he does are possible made it possible for me to go out and connect as well. So at any rate, that's my interview with Vic Mignogna, a good friend of mine. I'm hoping to see him soon as I prepare to try to go to Florida to sit in with one of their productions. And, you know, that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're interested in the show, in his Star Trek Continues fan series, you can check that out online at StarTrekContinues.com, where you can get updated on the late, you know, whenever they have a new release. They have all the current episodes there, and some little miniature episodes. And there's one episode, and I meant to talk about this, but there's an episode that's sort of a bridge between the end of the original series and Star Trek Continues, and it does a very good job. It picks up right where the last episode that aired left off. It has the same emotional impact, and you know, they did a really good job of trying to match the setting. So it's just fantastic. I mean, I am not as big a fan of the original series as I was of Star Trek: Next Generation, but I really appreciate the amount of energy and effort and passion that's going into that work, and the fact that he's got this cast of people who are really, you know, I don't know, they're known, and you know, it's just amazing. It's pretty amazing work, and that's a real testament, by the way, to. And I have this philosophy, and I've talked about this on the show before. It comes from my grandfather, and it's about asking for what you want, asking for things. And my grandfather always said that he never got a thing he didn't ask for, even if it was a punch in the mouth, which is a testament to personal responsibility as much as anything. But I kind of took that as, you know, you can get just about anything you want out of life if you're at least willing to ask. I mean, if you're at least willing to make connections and talk to people, and find the common ground that you have, build a relationship, and you'd be surprised at the sorts of things that you could pull off. So that is a word of wisdom for today, and I hope that resonates with you and helps you with you know, something that may be going on in your life. So I'm gonna leave off now. Real quick, just to follow up again, if you want to help support the show, I'd really appreciate that. Go to the Patreon campaign at patreon.com/Kevin Tumlinson. You know, you can give as little as $1 a month, and you can cancel at any time. So don't feel too obligated or anything, but I would appreciate it. It'd be very helpful to me. You can also call me with any questions, and Vic's agreed, although it seemed kind of hesitant for a second there, but I know that if I pass something on to him, he'd be willing to respond. So if you want to leave a voicemail to ask me a question or ask a question for Vic or whatever, call me at 281-809-WORD. That's 281-809-9673. Or, go onto the website at kevintomlinson.com/podcast and use the speak pipe button on the right-hand side where you can leave me a voicemail straight from your computer. So if you are outside the U.S., that's probably going to be the most economical way to do it. And, sometimes the most convenient. You can do that from your phone as well, by the way, if you are on a smartphone. I've discovered this. I need to start adding that to the pitch here, but you can actually, there's an app for SpeakPipe, and so when you go and click that button on my site, it pops up and says, download the app for free, and you'll be able to leave a voicemail. So do that, and that's pretty awesome. Of course, you can leave an email from that same site. And please join the tribe, become a slinger. If you are interested at all in this show or my blog or my books, I hope you're interested in my books, but or in the guests, anything that is connected to the word slinger here. You may get on that list and get updated. Every week, pretty much. I mean, there's always something going out. And I never sell the list. I have been known to stab people, which is not a admission of guilt. I'm going to say it's a joke. But anyone who tries to take the precious. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. Thank you for your continued support. And thanks for being an inspiration to me, because you are. This show happens because I have someone to talk to. I would do it regardless, but it's great to have an audience. So thank you so much for being a part of that. And take care of yourselves. Tune in next week. Next week I'm going to be talking with Johnny B. Truant, who is he's 1/3 of the self-publishing podcast. And that interview was great. It was funny because they're actually trying to cut down interviews, but in podcasts, because they're a huge time suck, so they're being very discerning about who they talk to. But he worked me in because I'm, as he refers to it, I'm SPPOG, so original gangster. And he was very gracious, and I try to be very respectful of his time because I know how slam those guys are. But that's going to be an amazing interview. Whether you're interested in indie publishing or not, or in the publishing world in general, tune in for that interview, because there are some real lessons for the would-be entrepreneur in that. So whether you have any interest or not, tune in. It's a fun interview also. So all right, take care of yourselves. I will see you next week, and from my tribe to your home, live long and prosper.
Word slinger.